What's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? Jade Farrar for the Jade Farrar Show, and I'm joined today by disability blogger and activist Michael Pulman. Mike, how's it going, mate?
It's good, Jade. Good to be here and doing well, and thanks for having me, mate.
A lot has happened since the My Voice Matters conference. Can you tell us a bit about what you've been up to lately?
So I've started a brand new morning show live on Facebook every weekday, and slowly getting back into the disability advocacy sort of space. It's been, I guess I never stopped doing it. I've still been blogging a lot and videos, but going back to that My Voice Matters conference, it was my first conference this year really. So starting to get back into the game and find that fire in my belly, I guess.
So a little bit of backstory. So the team and I at My Voice Matters were looking for someone with lived experience that had some background in social media, was a little bit of a blogger, and definitely had something to say. You and I don't know each other, correct?
No, I knew of you, and I followed you a wee bit on social media, but never met you.
Well, all that being said, Mike, it's really cool to finally connect with you, and one of the things that I really want to bring out as part of this discussion today is the importance of positive discussion around disability. I'm sort of feeling right now, particularly with all the politics and the elections going on, there's a lot of tension. I don't know if you feel that in the air with the spaces that you frequent online.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of tension, with election time. We all become an expert, don't we? We've all got something to say, and I know I certainly have this week, but and weeks prior, but I think the tension you refer to in the disability space, it's nothing new, and we're seeing a lot of change, aren't we, with system transformation and obviously enabling good lives into its first real year of being. So that tension of giving control, so-called control, back to disabled people, is making a lot of people quite anxious, I think.
Yep. And it's also about, what I want to say is it's really interesting how you'd think with so much negative stuff coming in from external sources, you'd think we'd be a quite united sector, but I try to keep this channel really positive, right? So that's one thing I want to say up front. But I find being online and just observing some of the discussions going on, I think we are really divided, actually. There's not really one consistent push that's coming from the sector as a whole in terms of what we want and how to move forward. I think part of that is because our needs are so different.
Yeah, you nailed it on the head, and I think we're such a diverse community with different groups, and I think in terms of the so-called collective voice, I don't think there is actually a collective voice. We're all on social media, and people want to see different things. There are some that are so passionate about this new model of choice and control, and they're advertising that. And there are others that are very hot on education issues and employment issues, and I think those are two of probably the more important ones. Choice and control is good, enabling good lives is good, being in control of your supports is great, but it doesn't just end there. So there's just so many different avenues of interest and politics, so to speak.
So, can we touch on politics for a minute? Because it'd be ridiculous if I didn't. You've had an interesting time with the ACT disability spokesperson as of late.
Yes.
You've discovered that they don't really have a disability policy.
No, they don't. I don't know what the hell's going on, to be fair, but I've talked to Josh Perry, the candidate. He's assured me that there is a document that outlines actual policy, because what we saw released on Friday was nothing more than a press release, with no bone to it whatsoever. And he's gone back on what he originally promised. Like, the first thing he said was, "Well, it's in draft stage; it's not finished." So I doubt if it actually is finished. To be honest with you, they've just done something because me and others started talking about it. But again, he said, "Oh well, we're not going to do anything until after the election." So I mean, who knows what's going on there? But once again, the X policy. It does nothing to address the barriers, the attitude barriers that face people with disabilities.
So I had a look at that disability policy, and it was posted on Facebook. You'll be able to find it at the Josh Perry ACT MP Facebook page, I think. Is it even still up there, Mike?
Yeah, it's still up on his page, but it has been taken down from the DPA New Zealand page, I believe, and also the Accessible Travel Forum.
All right. So as I was saying, you can find it there. And my perspective of it, though, is it's 3 or 4 paragraphs using language we probably would have used about 10 years ago. It refers to the Disability Survey 2013.
Right, no, I was just going to say, you'll probably get into it, but
Yeah.
there is a lie in there about the 27% of disabled people who apparently have looked for work. That's now an outlier.
What's your take on that? Because when I reflect what you've been experiencing with ACT, I sort of look at the rest of the environment and I say, well, Labor's not doing too much. They haven't committed hardly anything to addressing the needs of the disability community. National have their thing. They've carved out their thing with sort of enabling good lives, and they're getting a lot of kudos for that in some places, and other places not so much. I haven't really heard of any other parties really launching anything amazing, other than the Green Party saying they would launch a disability commission. But in order to do that, they would need to get agreement from the governing parliament, I suppose.
Yeah, I think, the Greens and Labour and New Zealand First, I think, as well as the Opportunities Party, they're in support of the Access Alliance, or what they want to see, which is, legislation which would make fair and equal access actually law in New Zealand. National were the only one of the only main ones that haven't committed as well as ACT. I think Labour have some really good ideas. They've got a couple of really bad ones as well, but the whole thing with Labour at the moment is, how are we going to fund all this? And should Labour get into government, then, what happens with system transformation? What happens with VGL? What does it look like? Whereas National, they very much want to keep the status quo, because really, what else do they have? Nothing. And, but for me, the empathetic party here is Greens. But, I mean, again, a lot of it's just hot air. And, good on people like Huhana Hiki and others for calling them on that. So I don't, quite honestly, Jade, I don't think there is one party in this election that is going to make me feel any more confident about the disability sector. And, that might be me being a bit pessimistic, but I actually think it's the case, to be fair.
Oh, no, I absolutely hear you. And when I think about, what I'm trying to achieve for myself and my daughter, I'm remarkably underwhelmed by what all of the parties are sort of bringing to the table. What what should not be read into it is the fact that National aren't actually driving EGL. It's the community that are driving EGL, so even they accept they can't even take too much credit for what's happening in that space because it wasn't their idea. There are some people out there that have been stung by the great Michael Pulman. And I sort of want to ask, where does that energy come from? The drive to point out the issues and bring the dirty laundry to light. I think about some of the pieces you've written about providers and other pieces as well. So can you just talk about what makes you tick and what makes you get up in the morning and dig all the stuff up like this? Because some people would say, hey man, it's not really a big deal, is it? Like,
yeah, and well, that's a great question. I asked you to bring the tough questions. You certainly did. My God, where do I start? Honestly, man, a lot of the time I just act on my gut instinct. Probably on a lot of emotion as well. I'm a big believer that we can always do better. And yes, the disability sector at the moment with the likes of EGL, with individualised funding, with being able to manage your own staff, that's cool. But that is not the reality for everyone. And yeah, sure, we want to see EGL rolled out nationwide. We want to see everyone have, the funding given to them and to be able to employ their own staff and go and live a normal life. I think first thing to say, I think it's great. There's nothing, EGL, it's one of the best things to come out of our sector for a long time. And I know because I'm a participant of it. But I also think that you run the risk, especially when family is involved with managing money, and I'm not saying that family shouldn't be trusted, but there is the potential, for maybe people that aren't able to make fully informed decisions, I guess, to be exploited. There's risk with everything, Jade. So, yeah.
When I look at your online presence, it's probably one of the larger ones in the disability sector, and I was so excited to find you, really, because as I said at the My Voice Matters conference, I sort of feel like I spend a lot of time talking to myself in front of a camera, but it's really cool to finally meet somebody else doing that sort of thing. Can we zoom right out and say being a content creator in New Zealand with a disability, why would you do that?
Oh, well, I think, with social media, you've got the tools to have your voice heard and, express, your views and that, about anything, not just disability stuff. And that's certainly what's, kickstarted, my sort of presence. I appreciate what you're saying as well. I love what I do, but I also hate what I do, if that makes any sense. It's,
yeah.
I tend to piss a lot of people off and, with my views and on certain things, sex and disability, service providers, certain attitudes, stuff like that. So, but, social media is a gift. And to answer your question, why do it? Well, why not?
For me, it sort of began as a sort of outlet because people would often say that I was a bit mysterious, a bit of a recluse. Like, people would see me at these different events, but I wouldn't hang around for the social aspect. I'd do the slip out the back door, round by the kitchen type deal, and I was gone. And the bit about that is not so much that I thought I was too cool for the crowd or anything like that. It was just that the amount of meetings and conferences and appearances and speeches that I do, I've got to steal back every minute I can, and I would just disappear from those public environments. So then it got me thinking, well, in order to be a reasonably healthy person, I should be sharing a wee bit. So the Jade Farrar show became like this place for me to do the talking to lots of people at once about the things that I cared about, and I could just upload the video, leave it on the table. Some of those videos have got lots of views. Some of them haven't necessarily got a lot of views. And that was the next question I was going to ask. Is it a numbers game for you, or are you in it for the sort of love of it?
I think, honestly, it's a bit of both. I like at the moment I've just started the new morning show, and 2017's been an interesting year. I've still been very vocal online about disability world, but I sort of haven't been seen at a lot of events. I was let go from CC's Disability Action, but I think when you're going to do something, you have to take into account people that are watching, and you have to listen to feedback. But because there's no point in doing something if you got 0 viewers. It might, if anything, it'll make you feel good, but are you making a difference? So for me, it's about doing what I enjoy, and I have to say I really enjoy the game, as it were. I really enjoy the the activist sort of style. Probably as stressful as it is, I enjoy it more than sort of settling for what we've the status quo, so to speak. So there is it's both. I do it because I enjoy it, but you have to have a purpose. You have to know what you're going for, and you have to also look at if you're actually getting the numbers. But don't get too bogged down. 2 people, 200 people. Hey, at least if you're one person watching, one person's listening.
Yeah, because I've had a few people come up to me, fellow members of the disability community, and they say, wow, I watched this show or I watched that show, you've got a great channel, love what you're putting out. It sort of makes me feel like the YouTube view counter might be broken, because lots of people come up to me about my episodes and they aren't necessarily reflected on the website. But they always start sort of by saying, how do you do that? How do you have the courage to do that? And I suppose the funny thing for me about doing YouTube and doing vlogs like this is the fact there's actually nobody in my room. That's sort of like the key to it. There's nobody here. So I just encourage people all the time just to, turn on that camera and make content. I don't care what it is. It doesn't have to be political. It doesn't have to be disability. Whatever turns your crank every day, go do that.
Yeah, you raise a good point, because and just what you're saying about the views, and maybe you're not sure if people are watching and stuff. I totally get that. I mean, I've been there, not just with the view side of things, but because you find as an advocate / activist, you have periods where you have a lot of engagement with stuff that you do, and then you have other periods where you basically feel like no one's listening, no one's responding, you're getting nowhere. And I've been in that place this year. And I mean, it's not until recently that I was still as loud as ever, but it's not until recently that I sort of thought, hey, maybe people still do know who Michael Pulman is, and I think the moment I realised that, and I'm not saying this to toot my own horn, but when you and me were introduced at the forum, I remember with both your name and my name, there was a definite reaction in the room.
Yeah.
I heard, I know for me, when I heard my name, I saw and I heard a few people sort of go, it's him again. So, that, gave me great confidence.
Who are your favorite disability activists / content creators? And you can be brutally honest.
I actually don't have any, to be honest with you. I don't.
Hold on, Mike. Is that a cop-out answer?
No, honestly, I actually don't have any. I don't watch too much. Probably I watch your content. I reckon it's good. But I do find that a lot of the contents from so-called disability advocates is all about this sort of inspirational porn. Hey, this is my journey. Or, I used to be in the residential. I used to be bedbound, and this is how it changed my life. And I mean, I'm the world's biggest hypocrite. I used to public speak that exact same way. But I think, I don't watch a lot of content because I find it very repulsive, to be fair.
Yeah, I'd agree. And just reflecting what you're saying, I mean, if you look at a lot of disability content that's out there, it's either inspiration porn, as you say, or it's a story about overcoming a disability. So framing it as if the disability is the thing that needs to be got rid of. I think one of the things you'll find with the Jade Farrar show is I'm one of the few people that actually celebrate my diversity and difference. It's really quite sad.
Yeah, it is sad, actually. But I mean, you're so right about the earlier point that you made, like, and I think media feeds into a lot of that too, because whenever you see a disability story in the news or whatever, it's one extreme or the other. It's hey, this person's overcome a major event and they're now living a normal life in their community. Awesome. Or it's this disabled person is struggling to find work and he has benefit cuts and the real negative stuff. There's no in between. There's no normality, I think. There's no like the ups and downs of life and in and out of relationships and all that sort of stuff. And that's why, like I said, this whole promotional public speaking makes me, I feel repulsed just listening to it. The reason is because I used to do it. Then I was on the circuit for a couple of years speaking at a number of different events. I know you were at some of them. I did, and for probably the first year, I was that guy who hey, I'm living and I'm studying and I'm a writer and this is so cool and I've been through depression and all this sort of stuff. That's great, and this is how individualized funding helps me. Cool. But about a year in, I was sort of like, actually, this is not about me anymore. I've told that story. I've had to relive all that so many times to a room of complete strangers. I want to talk to that specific audience about that specific issue. So give me all the information on the issue and I will get up and speak about it. That's where the tide turned for me.
So can you dig a little deeper? Like where does that come from though? You don't just go from being one thing to another thing. Like you don't just sort of decide that you're going to be an issues person. What made you become an issues person, I suppose?
I think I was always an issues person. I just wasn't confident enough to bring it out. And I mean, that's the thing. When you're on stage like that and people, give you praise, you do get a lot of confidence. I think another reason I started changing lanes, so to speak, was probably just research. I actually looked at what the hell was happening in the sector, and all these different conferences where we're promoting a new initiative, or we're having a discussion about values, or disability pride and all this sort of stuff, and that's awesome. I'm not putting a downer on that, but when I looked, I saw a lot of similarities going on. I saw a lot of talk about funding, so I researched it all, and it just that's where it changed for me. I think. I think.
I often talk about the legacy that I'm trying to leave, the sort of giving myself purpose through my content and through my messages. What would be your legacy that you'd want to be leaving? The message that you want people to understand. And there's a second part to this, because do you ever worry at any stage that you're going to be blackballed by an entire community? Because here's the bit. I went through a phase like that where virtually nobody would touch me with a barge pole because I said what I thought. So we'll go back to the first bit. In terms of legacy, what are you trying to leave?
Oh boy. Yeah, to me, there's not one. I want to do a number of different things. I want to talk about the issues that matter to people, and the thing about that is different issues matter to different people. We're all individuals. We all have our own stories and our own situations, and that's I guess that's why I get a bit annoyed with the promotional side of public speaking that we see, because it doesn't it works, but it doesn't. It's not just simple as saying, "Hey, here's this product. Here's how it changed my life. Go ahead." My legacy, I don't know, Jade. I mean, I just want to be remembered as somebody who got back up, if you know what I mean. Because I mean, getting to the second bit of your question, I'm in that space now. That blackboard space where I feel like, every day, to answer your question, every day, I wonder if, the disability sector's moved on from me, or, or my message, or maybe I've been told I've been too radical. I've been told I have a desire to be controversial. I've been told I'm too loud. And maybe it's all true. I don't know. I'm me. And I think is that I don't even know what else to say.
Part of why I wanted to do this collab, I suppose, is because I don't really see a lot of disabled people getting together with common sort of talents and abilities, and really generating something positive out of that. So I guess my next question is, like in terms of collaborating and working with other disabled people, I mean, you obviously see that as a positive. You're on the Jade Farrar show today, but sort of why do you think it is that people don't get together?
I think if you were going to listen to what the disability sector was going to tell you, is that we are actually getting together and we are making progress through, B leadership, through, Facebook connections, and through conferences like, the gathering in Wellington, that was the voice coming together, and so on. But I think, is it really happening? One of the things I was thinking about over lunch today was there is a lot of cause, there is a lot of purpose in the sector right now, and that's why we see the conferences, right? That's why we see the get-togethers. That's why we see the online stuff. It's because there's a cause or a purpose. I think they're the same thing. But anyway, is there a result is my question. And the answer to that is no. There is no result. You can't say enabling good lives is a result. It's a start. You can't say system transformation is a result. It's a start. You know what I'm saying? So I think, and this is where I clash with my previous employer, and I've clashed with many in the sector, is that what are we getting out of this? Are we getting a 2-day talker fest, inspiration fest, free meal, free get together? What are we going to do when we go back to the office on Monday? And when we come up against, those barriers that exist within our own sector? How do we get out of the silo of our own sector? And I don't see, maybe I'm not looking hard enough, but I don't see that happening, that result happening. We're on our way, but are we?
Because for me, a lot of my work, particularly in the last 5 years, has been about challenging brand disability. I talk to a lot of people. I've never talked about it on the Jade Farrar show, actually, so this is kind of a new thing that I'm going to talk about, but personal brand, right? And I think not enough disabled people or people in the community in general think too much about their personal brand and what they actually bring to the table. Which is to say, there are so many talented people in the sector. So many talented people. And I put a post up on my Facebook page the other day. Wherever I have the chance, I deploy the talent of the disability community. Just because someone has a pretty out there opinion or they want to challenge the status quo, that doesn't mean anything to me. Probably because I'm a bit of a crazy guy myself in terms of the things that I come out and say. I mean, my YouTube channel, if I'm honest, makes no sense. No sense at all. You can sit there for an hour and be like, okay, so I've sat through 6 videos and I have no idea what this guy is on about. But my personal brand is about that I have more than one opinion. And I think so many other people are like that as well. But they get tunneled into being this one thing because that's what organizations and seemingly important people tell them to do.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I mean, I'm sort of in that place at the moment where, I listened to what you said in Auckland about growing the brand, and to do that you've got to work bloody hard, and that's what I'm doing at the moment. But where I've changed, I think, is I've set myself a challenge where it's put what I want out on social media, and once it's out there, just leave it. I will respond to criticism if it deserves it. I'll respond to positive stuff if it deserves it. And I'm not going to lie, I do look at the comments. It does sting, when you get criticised. But the thing is, I just want to do it and put it out there because I believe in what I'm saying. And quite honestly, a lot of the statuses and the blogs that you see there's not a lot of planning into it. Yeah, there'll be a bit of research and some articles, and that's journalism, right? But boy, oh boy, a lot of it is just off my own instinct, and that's what I want my brand to be. And, I think to build a successful brand, to be a successful advocate / activist, you need to have multiple, avenues of what you're doing. So, like you and me, we've got Facebook, we've got YouTube. I'm lucky enough to be in community radio, and writing and stuff. But if you're just doing the same shit on, excuse my language, but if you're just doing the same shit on each platform, the same selling, the same journey stuff, it's not changing lives. And I mean, having said all that, one of my next videos is going to be about my journey as a disabled person. But, I don't do that every single time. I think it's relevant in parts. But I don't know if that makes sense, Jade, but, that's sort of what I think. You've got the tools there with social media. And I mean, like David Lepofsky said at the Access Alliance conference, the great man, he was astounded that so many people in New Zealand in the sector are not active on Twitter. And he made a really good point to say to politicians, we are not disabled people, we are voters. That's what is going to change the thing, right, in this election. And I think, just to bounce off, one of the things I did want to say in this video, and I'll try and say it in my own one tomorrow, we are so much as a sector about going to government, going to the people who can make the decisions that, we need to actually stop that shit and make it so they come to us. And to do that, it's going to be an attitude change. Don't know what it is, but that's what needs to happen.
Mike, we're probably at a good place to wrap up the interview. I just wanted to know if there was anything else you want to say to the viewers on my channel real quick.
No, just make sure you keep following Jade's great work and, get in touch with both of us on social media. We're always up for a real discussion, I think. So thanks for having me today.
So I just wanted to say, guys, it's been really awesome to have Mike on the show today. At the end of the video, I'll leave a link that you can click on to Mike's channel. But other than that, guys, thank you for being a part of the journey. Thank you for being a part of the channel. And we'll see you in the next one.